Hi friends, this week we are traveling to Washington, D.C. We are going to meet a woman named Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg was a member of the United States Supreme Court, and she passed away this last Friday. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about her, because last week when we read the story of Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan, we possibly felt like her battle to help girls go to school was so different from our experiences in the United States, where we felt like perhaps that women and men and boys and girls were far more equal here. And some of the reason that we feel that way is because of the work of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I wanted you to know about the things that she's done in our country. This book here is called I Dissent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg makes her mark. It was written by Debbie Levi and illustrated by Elizabeth Badley. You could say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life has been one disagreement after another. Disagreement with creaky old ideas, disagreement with unfairness, and disagreement with inequality. Ruth has disagreed, disapproved, and differed. She has objected, she has resisted, and she has dissented. Is she disagreeable? No. Is she determined? Yes. This is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg changed her life and ours. In 1940, Little Ruth's neighborhood was vibrant with immigrants, people from Italy, Ireland, England, Poland, and Germany, Jews from Russia like Ruth's father Nathan Bader, people from different cultures with different holidays, foods, and traditions. But in all of these families in Brooklyn, New York, and in families in lots of places, one thing was the same. Boys were expected to grow up, go out into the world, and do big things. And girls were expected to find themselves husbands. But Ruth's mother disagreed. Celia Amster Bader thought that girls should have the same chance to make their mark on the world, and so she took Ruth to the library. On the shelves, there were stories of girls and women who did big things. Ruth read about Nancy Drew, a girl detective. We have books about Nancy Drew if you want to join and find out what Ruth liked about her. And she read about Amelia Earhart, a daring aviator. She learned of Athena, the goddess of Greek myths. In these books were independent girls and women taking charge. Ruth read her way into this world, and around her the sweet scents of books blended with the savory aromas from the Chinese restaurant that was just downstairs. Delicious. A girl could be anything. Sometimes Ruth and her parents took car trips out of the crowded city. Ruth specifically remembers driving past a hotel in Pennsylvania where she saw this sign that read, "No dogs or Jews allowed." Now, Jews are people who practice the Jewish religion. And this was how it was in these days. Hotels, restaurants, and even entire neighborhoods had signs that said, "No Jews, no colored, no Mexicans, whites only." Ruth and her family were Jewish. And this was prejudice, pure and simple. And now it was Ruth's turn to disagree. She disagreed by never forgetting how it felt to read such words. She never forgot the sting of prejudice. In elementary school, Ruth was excellent in some classes and less excellent in others. Her favorites were English and history and gym. In those she did well. But then there was handwriting. Ruth was left-handed. Back then, teachers told left-handers they should just write with their right hands. Ruth's right-handed penmanship was bad. She earned a D on her penmanship test and cried. Then she protested. Ruth protested by writing with her left hand, and from that day forward, it turned out she had quite nice handwriting. Ruth also had a little problem with cooking and sewing. These were her least favorite classes, but girls then had to take them. Boys had to take shop, where they worked with saws and tools. She wanted to take shop and handle a saw. She didn't get what she wanted, and it may have been unfair to girls and to boys. and Ruth was learning that sometimes that happened. Ruth loved music, and she especially loved opera. In music class, she lifted her voice in song. This time, it was her music teacher's turn to object, gently. Ruth could not carry a tune. The teacher asked Ruth not to sing out loud in the chorus. Ruth kept on singing. In the shower and in her dreams, she continued to adore the opera her whole life. By the time Ruth was in high school, friends and teachers knew she was an outstanding student, a baton twirler, a cello player, and a newspaper editor. As graduation approached, Ruth was chosen to make the speech at her ceremony. But she'd been keeping a big secret. Her mother was terribly sick, and the day before graduation, Celia Bader died from cancer. There was no agreeing with this. There was no disagreeing. This simply was. Ruth did not go to her graduation, and she did not give her speech. But she knew what her mother would have wanted for her, and 3 months later, she left home to attend college at Cornell University. Not many girls went to college in the 1950s, and Ruth made friends. She also met girls that would exclude her from her clubs because she was Jewish. She met boys who thought that girls should be looking for husbands. And then she met Marty Ginsberg. Martin was tall and funny, and Ruth was small and serious. Marty could make her laugh. They fell in love, and they hatched a plan. After college, they would go to law school together. Lawyers, Ruth had learned, could fight unfairness and prejudice in courts. People thought it was a fine idea for Marty to go to law school. They didn't think Ruth should go. A lady lawyer, he said. Doesn't that sound strange? Don't say a man lawyer. She's just a lawyer. People disapproved. Ruth disapproved right back. And so did Marty. They got married and they went to law school. And while she was there, she had a baby, June. Ruth's law class had a total of 9 women and 500 men. She studied mightily and tied for first place in class. And yet, after her graduation, no one would hire this brilliant lawyer. She was a woman, and men didn't want to work with women. She was a mother, and men thought that a mother wouldn't pay attention to her work. And she was Jewish, and many people were still prejudiced. It was 3 strikes against her, but Ruth was not out. She resisted and persisted. Finally, a judge hired her, and she worked like mad for him. After that, one law school hired her to teach. She became one of the first female professors in the whole country, and she did it while having another baby, James. Ruth had disagreed and worked her way into being a lawyer and professor. But around her, other women were being excluded from jobs. When they did get jobs, they earned less money than men in the same role. They were kept out of important roles in government and court. And to make matters worse, the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court in the land, approved of all of this. As one Supreme Court justice had written years before, the natural and proper timidity and delicacy, which means shyness and delicate, which belongs to the female sex, evidently unfits it for many occupations of civil rights. In other words, women and girls were too shy and too weak to do big things in the world. And another Supreme Court justice declared that a woman has always been dependent on a man. Or maybe men weren't willing to let women become independent. Ruth really, really, really disagreed with this. So she went to court to fight for the equal treatment of women. In one of the most important cases of hers, she went to the Supreme Court. It was the first time she appeared there, and Ruth was so nervous she thought she might be sick. But as she was standing before the 9 Supreme Court justices, Ruth imagined them as her students. And she realized that she needed to teach these students, who were all men, why a person's choice shouldn't be limited just because she was born a girl. Ruth wasn't only fighting for women. When women were excluded from the work world, men were excluded from home life. Why shouldn't a father stay home to care for his children and cook the meals? Why shouldn't a wife run a business? These were fresh ideas in the 1970s. Ruth did not win every case, but she won enough. And with each victory, women and men and girls and boys enjoyed a little more equality. Now, back at home, sometimes Ruth and Marty's children received confused looks when they said their mother argued cases in the Supreme Court and their father made dinner. People found this strange, but Ruth, Marty, Jane, and James did not concur. They did not agree. They kept on being the type of family they wanted to be, and dinners at the Ginsberg home were delicious. Marty was a successful lawyer, but he was a marvelous chef. Ruth, her family knew, had only mastered the art of a burnt pot roast. Ruth became a lawyer, and she was so well known that President Jimmy Carter chose her to be a judge in Washington, D.C. Then Ruth became known as a first-rate judge, and President Bill Clinton asked her to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Along with 8 other Supreme Court justices, her job would be to decide the most significant cases and answer the most difficult legal questions in the United States. Ruth agreed. In 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first Jewish woman on the nation's highest court, and the second woman. In each case, the Supreme Court considers, after hearing from lawyers who argue for each side, the justices take a vote. The side that gets the most votes wins the case. The justices who agree write an opinion explaining why they agree. And when Justice Ginsburg votes with the winning side, she wears a lace collar that looks like this. She has worn this collar many times. When the Supreme Court announces a decision and Justice Ginsburg disagrees, she says, "I dissent," which means I do not agree. She says, and she will write her own opinion explaining why she doesn't agree. And she wears a different collar just for dissenting. "I dissent," Justice Ginsburg said when the court wouldn't help women or African Americans or immigrants who had been treated unfairly at work. "I dissent," she said when the court rejected a law that was meant to protect the rights of all citizens to vote no matter the color of their skin. "I dissent," she said when the court said no to schools that offered African Americans a better chance to go to college. Justice Ginsburg can be very convincing. In one dissent, she explained why the court was wrong to rule against women workers who wanted to be paid the same as men for the same work. Congress and the president agreed with her and passed the law to undo the court's ruling. Justice Ginsburg has disagreed most often with the legal views of Justice Antonin Scalia. But they didn't just complain. They shared their conflicting ideas, and each pointed out weaknesses in the other's arguments. And after the opinions were written, the two justices went about having fun with one another. They didn't let their disagreements about the law get in the way of a lifelong friendship. Justice Ginsburg is now the oldest member of the Supreme Court. She was, and some said that she should have quit earlier because of her age, but she begged to differ. Until the end, she worked as hard as ever, exercising in gyms, never missing a day in court, attending the opera, giving speeches, and traveling. Many have cheered Justice Ginsburg for her persistence and independence. They've called her a rock star, a queen, a goddess, and a hero. Of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg isn't really a rock star, or a queen in some senses, or a goddess, but she is a hero. She made things happen, and she changed minds. She cleared a path for people to follow in her footsteps. Girls in college, women in law school, and everyone who wants to be treated without prejudice. Her voice may not carry a tune, but it sings out for equality. And step by step, she has made a difference. One disagreement after another. And even with her passing, she has made another change for America. She will be laid in state at the U.S. Capitol building, which is like having her funeral there. And she is the first woman to get to do this in almost 250 years of America's history. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had many opinions about many things. And you may not agree with everything she thought, But she worked hard, and she was a real-life hero who overcame many boundaries to make America what it is. I am glad that you listened carefully through this long story. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.